You're on the air. Don't say anything crazy. Greetings, fellow travellers, and welcome to another exciting edition of Brobears Talk. Today, Andre and I are going to be unpacking the electric vehicles revolution. And we're going to be talking about how, in particular, Elon Musk and Tesla are quickly creating a technology-driven monopoly around the electronic vehicles industry. We're also going to be talking about the rise of China as a superpower and how China is trying to almost mimic and compete with the electric vehicle market in its own right. Apologies to anybody listening in for the poor sound quality. We are very aware that it's crap. However, Andre did not know that he was being recorded at the time. In fact, his voice was blaring out of the tiny, tinny noise holes in my iPhone 8, hence why the sound quality was compromised. However, the content of this podcast will definitely not be compromised. Enjoy, everybody.
There will be loss-making for many years to come, as Tesla's been for many, many years, and it's only recently done 2 quarters of profits. The last 2 quarters have been profitable for Tesla, and that's unprecedented for Tesla. The other companies are loss-making and will be loss-making for a very long time. The price-to-earnings ratio is essentially what it says on the tin: the price of the stock, one share, versus how much it earns.
Right.
So the equation is, let me just get this right. Price is very high, energy in there. Yeah, so it's price over earnings. So the higher the PE ratio, the more belief people have in the future of the stock.
Because it would suggest that you're getting higher returns relative to what you put in.
Yeah, they're pricing in future returns, but it's all future returns. It's not reflected in today's earnings. You see what I mean? So the price being, essentially that equation being top heavy indicates, obviously gives you a high number and indicates that there's a huge amount of belief in the future as opposed to earnings, like the reality on the ground today. So the PE ratios were going through the roof in the dot-com bubble. They were like in the 50s. Yeah. And every industry has like a range of where like mining stocks are in the PE ratio like quite low, like 6 to 20. And obviously you don't have a PE ratio until you're profitable because you have no earnings to speak of, so you can't make the equation work. Yeah. Anyway, I'm diverting. What was I saying? So during the dot-com bubble, there were like stocks which had PE ratios of 50, 60, which is crazy high. Yeah. Insane. But Tesla now has a PE ratio of over 1,000.
What? And how recent is that?
That's very recent. That's literally that 1,000 threshold. I'm not sure that's very particularly significant. Or you can say it's fucking high.
So in a way, they're playing. I mean, the mission hasn't been profitability. It's been a mission-driven enterprise.
I think people are just buying into the stock because what they believe is the first to market equals market domination. Because that's what people believe.
Because it's such a novel area that hasn't seen full.
And they're so far ahead. No one will be there to compete against them, and no one really is there to compete against them. So they've got an open field. So they've got essentially a monopoly.
Yeah, they would if they succeeded, and they would. But Brother Bear, what about stumbling blocks? Because a lot of the stuff, the criticisms I hear of Tesla relate to the lack of infrastructure, the lack of electronic charging ports across the Western world. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that's probably a valid point. Depends on your geography. I think the US is getting better. I think you're only going to see the situation improve So almost today is the worst day ever it's ever going to be for EVs. But every day we plus one from here will be better for EVs, and probably at an exponential rate.
Yes.
So I think if people are able to drive Teslas, and I've not heard of many owners complaining of not having enough charging points, because don't forget, like, some of these cars have like a 300-mile range now. So that's a lot.
Yeah, that's right. So
and it's rare that you're not at some point back home within that 300-mile range.
Yeah. And correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't there some kind of reimbursal program that Tesla were doing for its customers?
Yes, was that
for electricity?
What was that from? Was that from a fault, or what was it?
I don't think it was that. I thought it was to do with the amount of electricity consumption, but I could be wrong.
I've not heard about that, Brother Ben.
I thought it was some kind of incentive similar to what suppliers of solar paneling do.
Almost like a what's it called? What's it called? Like a government, it does subsidy.
I think it may have been a subsidy. Again, I need to look into it again because I feel like I could be completely wrong on that. But I feel like at one point there was an incentive. Maybe it was in Sweden for buyers to basically have to have some kind of incentive for making the switch.
No, I hadn't heard of that. Oh, I see. So wait, would it be like a discount from the government for buying an EV? Or would it be from Tesla?
I really don't know. I think it was either it was either Tesla or the government. I don't know the specifics, Brother Bear, but I thought it was some kind of electricity incentive.
Not heard of that yet, but very interesting, Brother Bear. And Elon Musk is also looking at securing some nickel, and because two key metals for batteries, lithium-ion batteries, are obviously lithium and nickel. So to secure a steady supply and ensure minimal price fluctuation when it comes to these raw materials, Elon, right? And I think Tesla as a car manufacturer is more vertically integrated than any other car manufacturer in the world, as in they do everything in-house.
Right, and
from raw material through to finished product. Right,
and that's... Now, is that associated with quite a big cost savings, or is the main benefit?
Yes.
Yeah, because I know...
Yeah, because otherwise when you've got subcontractors and partners, they would literally take slivers of profit along the way.
Right. So, and control over R&D must be huge.
Yeah, definitely. And this is what Elon's kind of trying to do even more extreme, because I recently saw an article about him entertaining the idea of buying nickel mines.
Yes.
So he's not, the only thing he's buying at the minute is raw materials. He's thinking, I want to buy the land you get it out of. So there is no one left. It's Tesla from 0 to 10.
Yes. So really, we're looking at not just a monopoly over horizontal integration and vertical integration in this particular market could actually be realistic for Tesla and Elon.
Yeah, he's pretty vertically integrated already. I'd say the only missing piece is the mine, because they take it to the finished product, and so the mine's the missing piece.
So you can use nickel as a substitute. Was that in lithium batteries?
Yeah, I believe it's a key ingredient in a lithium-ion battery. Yes, that's correct. Nickel is a very key metal for the production of those batteries.
Interesting. Okay. So he's now looking at land. He's surveying for land to...
or buying existing nickel mines or existing nickel mining companies.
And tell me about China, Brotherly Bear. You were talking about the sort of the rise, or at least players in the Chinese market in EV. What the hell's going on there, Brother Bear? Do you think what's going on? Talk to me. about that.
Yeah, I think it's not dissimilar to what we saw in 2014, 2016. Do you remember when we had like that whole craze and explosion of interest around 3D printing? And that's really died down recently,
Yeah.
5-6 years.
I mean, I never engaged with it, but yeah, I remember the hype about it was big.
It was quite big, remember? And that, if you look at like stocks of some of the biggest 3D printing firms at the time, like Stratasys or 3D Systems, they sort of have this massive peak, which sort of tops out in 2014, and an equally rapid and steep drop. And I wonder whether we're sort of in a EV bubble at the minute. And I wonder whether one of the best moves in terms of a trade could be buying an established player like Volkswagen, who in actual fact, long run wise, is probably going to be one of the biggest EV manufacturers in the world 10 years down the line. But as I was saying, with people trying to cash in on this EV craze at the minute, there is a bunch of small companies in the United States. In fact, there is one other US player that I do forget the name. I don't know if it's Nikola or is that the Chinese-based one. In any case, there's NIO, which is probably the closest firm to Tesla. It's far behind, but it's the closest one they've got in terms of a pure EV car, and that's from they've shipped something like 20,000 cars so far.
Right.
And they're China-based, but their valuation is also obscene, and their price-to-earnings ratio is also obscene. But there's a real rush onto the market, and there's a real fear from traders and investors alike of FOMO, the fear of missing out, and that's often what drives these bubbles.
Yeah.
The very human trait of FOMO.
Well, just think of the phenomenon of adding millions of dollars to the value of your business just by adding the words .com after the trading name.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
all the expectations and the FOMO that comes with that is very much a part of how markets work, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And these bubbles, they're fun, but they ultimately likely to pop. I don't think that justifies some of these valuations on some of these electric vehicle stocks in China. This one here, NIO, has got a market cap of 63 billion, obviously a fraction of Tesla's. But look, for example, just to give you an example, right? Just have a look at Tesla again. 2 seconds for that.
Yep.
So the P/E ratio of Tesla is 1,100, which is mad.
So what does that indicate?
So that indicates a belief that, like a stout belief that future growth is very much on the cards. This is a growth stock, and this is a rapid growth stock. So you've got two kinds of stocks. You've got value stocks, which is sort of your stocks that are undervalued and should be worth more. That's value investing. And then there's growth stocks. So those are typically confined to emerging technologies and areas of rapid growth, such as EVs at the minute. NIO is another one. There's another company called Xpeng. It's X and then PENG.
Yeah.
Check those guys out. They're big.
Can I just stop you, Brother Bear, and just say, I really admire your knowledge base and your obvious passion for this area.
Thank you, Brother Bear.
I think it's really, really impressive. Just it comes across as such a genuine interest in this, and that's so good, because I feel like this is a time where a lot of people, particularly men, I've noticed, have this sort of it's almost like this pseudo interest in stocks and trading. Like, oh, I'm trading now. What are you doing? I've got this insane secret, and I'm aware of how to make money off of the stock market, and I feel like it comes across as so genuine. Your interest in this area and your knowledge base is really impressive.
Really, Ben, thank you very much. Always so flattering, Brobear. I'm
It's
glad
true.
you think so. No, it's definitely a genuine interest. It's hard to get interested in stuff through force, I find.
Yeah. You can't plan
it's
fun.
always been something I've been interested in for a long time, but I can see the FOMO phenomenon in myself. I think it's so human, isn't it? Because I was entertaining the idea of buying into a Neo or an Xpeng. It might still be a good idea, but you constantly have that feel that the ship has sailed and then it goes up, and it's a difficult one to gauge, really. It's not easy.
It's the timing dilemma, isn't it? It has, oh, well, everyone's already done that, and then you see the value of it rise dramatically, and then you think, oh, crap, like I could have made some money there on that.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I think, it's really interesting, the electronic vehicle industry, and you kind of piqued my interest because is it going to be another avenue for China to compete against the US, and really provide perhaps a cheaper alternative? Because I feel like Chinese offerings in the global market is often about undercutting. I mean, look at Huawei, for example. A lot of people bought Huawei's because the unit cost is just so low, compared to, say, your iPhone 11 or your iPhone X. Functionality is still very good.
Yes.
So I just wonder, in terms of the innovation and the costings, if China is going to use these companies as another avenue to try and blow America out of the water.
Yeah, it definitely is. I mean, the sort of unlawful or insidious stealing of intellectual property from America in particular has long been a Chinese pastime.
Well,
stealing intellectual property has been something they've been doing prolifically, and don't even do a good job or even try and hide it, because everyone kind of is in the know. A good example is, in fact, there was an article very recently where I think it was the company Xpeng, and Elon Musk was accusing them of stealing Tesla's either design or technology.
Right.
Or both.
That's not surprising. You know about the situation with Land Rover.
No, what's that?
So
similar thing.
Very, very similar thing as what you've just said, Brother Bear. The certain competitors in the Chinese market have actually reverse engineered the innovations by Land Rover, to the point at which I believe there's a rule that's come in now for newer models of Land Rover. I can't remember the year. I think it may be past 2018 or 2019, where you can't resell. You have to sell it back to the dealership.
Okay.
Because there's very close monitoring of the whereabouts of some of these vehicles, because too much information is getting passed back, and too many of them are being shipped back to China for reverse engineering purposes and basically theft of intellectual property.
God, that's mental. Because you're right. It's annoying because all of the upfront hard work, and the costly work in terms of R&D is done by America, and then they fucking get a leg up just by stealing, and essentially bypassing those steps by stealing.
Absolutely,
because
yeah.
the amount of R&D America needs to go through to arrive at those designs, it's insane, and the costs associated are insane. And then it's crazy. They completely just outsource, let America do the hard work, and then take it when the product's ready.
Skim the cream off the top, and again, it comes back to, you were talking about our last conversation. You were talking to me about market socialism. and China's coupling of sort of free markets and dictatorship, and again, it doesn't have the regulatory chokehold that America does to. So what can it therefore do? It can reduce costs dramatically, whilst stealing the innovation. The cost of labour is obviously considerably lower as well. So you've got sort of the labour financial side of that. So there's all these levers that China can pull, whether it's regulatory, whether it's IP theft, whether it's labour economics, to really be a, well a step above America in terms of being able to penetrate global markets.
Yeah.
Even though that's obviously it's grossly unfair, because they're not playing by the same rules.
Yeah, it's absolutely insane, isn't it? I don't know whether sometimes there's not much they can do, I suppose, and it's like it must be a really frustrating aspect to some of these companies.
Yeah, I don't feel like I feel like their hands are pretty much tied, in a lot of these situations. But yeah, I don't know. I remember back in when I was 17 or 18, studying economics and geography in high school, or geopolitics, and there's so much literature and documentaries coming out about the rise of China, and it was like a big talking point, like the rise of China by 2030 or 2020. China's going to be it's going to outgrow America. Look at its trajectory. What do you think about that, Brother Bear? Do you think that it is actually now on track for that? Maybe in 10 years or 20 years or 50 years. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's hard to put a convincing argument to the contrary. I think you're right. I think it is sort of what we're going to see. I think it's a token of many dynamics, including still a healthy population growth and a healthy working population. It's a population that's economically active. I think that's very fundamental, and sometimes something us geographers obviously appreciate very well, but others may not, or forget. Essentially, that's a key dynamic. Demographics play a huge part. I mean, look at Japan and Italy with their aging populations. They are economies that are kind of moving sideways, not up or down, or even in some cases gradually downwards, sort of stagnating because they've got such a hot, top-heavy demographic pyramid.
Yes.
So I think that's the key thing. They've got a strong, healthy, youthful populations, a healthy growth rate in terms of birth per capita. I think they've got a lot of talent over there as well. I think you're hearing about sort of more Chinese universities pulling in talent in that direction. I also think it's quite an attractive place for some of the best and brightest in technology, because there's unbridled. There's little to no regulation in terms of what is and isn't allowed. I mean, you hear about whole cities being experiments in terms of like AI monitoring and facial recognition and cameras on every corner. And to some people, that's kind of like the ultimate test bed for these technologies. And it's almost a Silicon Valley's developer's wet dream.
That's funny you say that, because ironically, even though China is by definition a dictatorship, it's removed those regulatory barriers again through the apparatus of market socialism. It's as it's termed, or market dictatorship, whatever you want to use. But it's removed all regulatory barriers to economic and financial experimentation. So, it can experiment facial recognition on its own people, and it can look at the efficacy of AI in monitoring human populations. And that's something like Silicon Valley in the US can't pull off. And Canada, I don't know. Did you ever hear about Canada's Silicon Valley up in the Innovation Corridor in Ontario?
No, I don't know about
It's quite interesting. It's this sort of 100-kilometer corridor that goes from Toronto out to a place called Kitchener in Ontario, and it's sort of this massive corridor of aerospace and lots of tech companies that are sort of experimenting with AI and the different shades of AI. Sorry, totally told you wrong there. Not Toronto to Kitchener, Ottawa to Kitchener.
Okay.
So it's actually, Ottawa is far more of a tech-heavy city than Toronto.
Okay.
So
what about somewhere like Montreal? Is that quite techy? Or?
Again, yeah, Montreal has quite a significant tech base, but nothing, I'd say nothing to the extent of sort of the Ottawa bubble, and like 100 kilometers west of Ottawa into places like Kanata and Kitchener, where you've got, every building off the innovation corridor is, doing something, whether it's electronic warfare or aerospace design. There's something going on.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, what you just said is spot on. I mean, neither of these tech hubs, and I'm sure the Cambridge Science Park in the UK, none of them can experiment with such free reign as say tech communities in China can.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think there's definitely a degree of envy there with Silicon Valley compared to what China can do. And so there's lack of regulation, I think, is an attraction. I think, like you said, a vibrant, healthy portion of the population being economically active. And yeah, I think that there's a lot of interesting hubs around it. You've got Singapore, a stone's throw away, which offers a lot of the financial sort of, I suppose, the funding for any sort of ventures, that sort of thing. Also, Singapore's extremely generous when it comes to startup funding. They'll give you something like 40,000 Singapore dollars, almost as a government subsidy, as long as you have a robust plan and all that. So it's really interesting stuff.
Yeah, that's quite interesting. I didn't know that the government is actually
it's extremely generous. I don't know how it works in terms of the pitch and what the criteria are to obtaining that, but there is definitely a healthy amount of government subsidising of startups.
Does Singapore have a monarchy?
I don't know what they have, actually. I don't think so.
Really? Okay. Maybe
check.
Maybe I'm wrong. Because I know, from what I understand, certain monarchies, one of those including Saudi Arabia, they actually function in quite a redistributive way, in a way that, like, for example, the British monarchy doesn't. And that is that some of the revenues that are levied through taxes actually go back into the system through free education and giving startup subsidies.
Right, okay.
I may have read that about Singapore somewhere, but I may be thinking of a country in the Middle East doing that.
Welcome to Singapore.
Singapore, God, I mean, you've had quite a personal interest in going there, right? Since the words of Anton Crail.
Anton told me to go.
Anton said, "Come, Andre, come. Just get on the train and go."
Brother Bear, can you do the podcast tomorrow then? Or
I can, Brotherly Bear. Can I now confess something to you, Brotherly Bear?
Confess, you bastard.
You're gonna call me a bastard for this. You're gonna call me a piece of shit, a dirtbag. But
I would never call you a piece of shit, but I'll call you a bastard liberally.
You bastard! Andrew, you bloody bastard! Andrew Carnegie was a ruthless bastard! Steve Jobs was a ruthless hard bastard!
Yes. Hard as nails!
Tough as shit! Hard as nails! No.
Bitcoin's gonna go to zero. Fucking zero!
Personal development. You can't measure personal development.
It's like ice cream, it melts. The fuck are you on about, Dan? Shut up.
Dan Pena, what the fuck does this mean? I can't make heads or tails of what the fuck you're saying. So, Brother Bear,
it doesn't mean anything. Nothing. Brother Bear, tell me what's.
I must get to the point. My point is, I thought it'd be interesting if I hit record on this conversation. And I did half an hour.
No.
Yes, I did.
Oh my god.
I did. Kidding? I'm not kidding. I said.
Shit.
I said I was going to do it.
I wasn't censored at all.